But let's bring in Ian Furness, our good buddy from ESPN 710 Seattle, because he shaved finally. How you doing, Ian?
Wrong station, Rod. Wrong station.
What are you now? What are you now?
Wrong. Big. I've never been 710. Nobody works there. Come on now.
How about that?
Thought you were KJR switched to ESPN.
No.
Oh, 910.
No. That's a 950 KJR Q13 TV, but that's fine. That's good. That's all right.
Is it good?
Off to a good
We're
start.
off to a great start.
Off to a rousing start right now. Yeah, absolutely.
Your team going to the Stanley?
We don't like those guys. They're it's a acrimonious relationship at best. Kind of like I think Gary Bettman has with GMs around the NHL right now for leaking out all these names. So
I was going to say, can we just rewind this? Ian Furness joins us from ESPN Radio Seattle. Hey, Ian, most of this Seattle team has been divulged here today. Listen, who's upset about this? I know I am.
Well, first of all, again, not ESPN. We have no affiliation with them. Because ESPN should be upset. I mean, they just paid a king's ransom, Rod, for the rights, and this is their first NHL event. And I mean, it's a gong show here, buddy. It's brutal. I mean, it's it's all about ESPN. It's been kind of frustrating for us in the local media, both radio and TV, and whatever station we're working for, because we're kind of just like, oh yeah, you guys, again, thanks for supporting us the last 2.5 years and everything, but ESPN's here, so just stand off to the side. You can't shoot video. You can't do this. You can't do that, because it's an ESPN event. And then all of a sudden today, now I think you guys said it's 27 out of 30. Is that what you guys have right now?
Yes.
27 out of 30 players,
exactly.
Right? So, I mean, to me, it takes a monster luster off of what should have been a kind of a crazy fun event today. Because now all of a sudden it's like, hey, from the Calgary Flames, we take Mark Giordano. Well, what a shock. I mean, I never saw that coming. Cole Lynn from Vancouver, stunning development that is. I mean, it's just, Chris Driedger from Florida. Who would have thought? It's a really kind of a weird day in that regard. Now, I guess, and you guys know better because you covered and talked a lot more about Vegas in 2017, but there certainly could be some side deals announced and so on and so forth. But I would just say, and again, Rod, you and I, just from a media standpoint, what a strange day. I thought they would do a better job of keeping this under lock and key. I thought Gary Bettman would say to the GMs, hey, there's going to be hell to pay if you guys start leaking out names, but that's obviously what has happened.
No kidding. And from Jason in Red Deer watching, he says, I'm glad all the picks are being leaked. That way I don't have to watch the much overproduced and overhyped reveal on TV. So it's interesting that you would start there, Ian, from Sports Radio KJR. I'm going to be thinking about this all day, actually, because I'm like, obviously the NHL must know that this is being leaked. They must not have a problem with it. And now, the way you say it, they should have a big problem with it. But aside all of that, did you think that Carey Price would be selected today?
I didn't, only because I just now whatever smokescreen Montreal may or may not be putting up there with the injuries, the hip and the knee, or a knee and a hip, and it seems like both are being discussed. That $10 million price tag just seems to be obscenely high, and by all accounts they picked up 3 goaltenders. It comes in, I think it's around $5.5 million, right, for the 3 goalies that they have. With Vanacek, the kid from Ottawa, and then obviously Driedger. So they were able to get 3 netminders for half of the price of Carey Price. Pardon the pun. So that didn't surprise me. I don't think you need a true face of the franchise necessarily when you're sold out the first year or two. I mean, they've got a waiting list that you have to put a deposit down, so selling tickets isn't an issue. Marketing the team outside of that fan base and the regional marketing of the team, I think, is important. So, there's some of the names that I thought they could have gone down and picked up to help that a little bit. But, I wasn't really shocked that they didn't get Price. I'm a little more surprised they didn't get one of Tarasenko or Landeskog.
Why do you think they didn't? Let's just go through the roster here, because they got Jordan Eberle. Yeah. I got it sent. There are some names, but do you think they just got too expensive? Like we all did our picks here. I had Tarasenko on it initially, and I had Voracek, and I'm like, whoa, it's up over $100 million here. So what do you think went into this?
Well, this has not been a frugal organization. It's not like they haven't spent money. I mean, the building of the arena, the practice rink, they hired Ron Francis a year before George McPhee was hired in Vegas. So I mean, they haven't been frugal by any means. And it's going to be a $2 billion investment all in with the franchise fee, the building, and the practice rink when it's all said and done. So I would never accuse them of being cheap or penny pinchers. I think what you saw today was analytics taking over a hockey organization top to bottom. And I'm sure, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I know that, analytics can be a 4-letter word for a lot of people in sports these days, no matter what the sport is. But I really, truly think that they looked at some analytics, and that's where you see some guys getting picked up that were surprises for all of us. As far as, Landeskog is a two-way street, right? He's got to decide, hey, I want to leave Colorado, a team that can contend right now for a Stanley Cup title, and leave Colorado and go to Seattle. He has to make that decision. It's not just a money decision, as we all know in any free agency. Tarasenko, maybe there's an injury issue there. I think they could have got the defenseman done as well, even with him. So, maybe thrown in there if they want to truly rid themselves of that contract. So that one's a curious one to me. There are some names that surprised me. I thought Voracek from Philadelphia was a no-brainer because he had his best year under Hackstall, and the contract's not that daunting. So, I mean, there's a lot of ones that you kind of just raise an eyebrow at, but it's hard because we also know what side, maybe the side deals with the next 24, 48 hours that get announced to kind of change it and clarify things, because what we see on paper now isn't necessarily what we're going to see overall.
Guys, Darren, can you throw that up? Put the camera on Darren, guys, if you don't, Moose. Put that right in front of you because I'm not sure if the camera's trained. There we go. 950 KJR, Seattle.
Thank you.
We won't forget.
Thank you. Yes.
Usually I'm good, but you're a Dub guy. You're a Dub guy, Ian, and I look at this Seattle. I look at Yanni Gourde going from Tampa Bay. Do you not do everything you can do to get Tyler Johnson, a Spokane kid, 2-time Stanley Cup champion? That one shocks me.
Well, again, the price tag there for him is high, and the term left and all that. And Gourde's just a better player. I mean, there is a balance. And when I said there's some things you could have done, or, we'll see what they end up doing. If indeed with Carolina it's Morgan Geekie, you had a chance to bring in Nino Niederreiter from Portland, and you're marketing your team in Portland. Again, there's money involved. I understand that, and they're going, they're kind of going down a road that's just maybe his business is indeed separate from the hockey team. But I thought Niederreiter would have been a no-brainer. I thought Ryan Johansson would be kind of a no-brainer. You put those two guys back on a line together. They did pick a Dub guy in Cole Lind, who, by all accounts, he's what we call in baseball a 4A player. So I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my arms around it. I'm trying to look at it from all angles. They did bring in Alexander True from San Jose. He scored the game winner, as you guys well know up there. Scored the game winner in the WHL final a few years ago. So they do have that. They do have that going for them. I thought they go Vanacek. I thought Brendan Dillon was a no-brainer to bring in here, and a top pair defenseman for an expansion team. So, and a former Thunderbird. So yeah, there's ones that are head scratchers. There's no doubt.
Really enjoying the chat, Ian, despite your digs. That was a painful night. Game 6, very painful night. Man, this city was alive with that. What an unbelievable series. So here's another one, and I'm really enjoying the discussion, my friend. So people are saying Mark Giordano, automatic captain of the Kraken. He was a captain in Calgary for many, many years. I say not so fast. What do you think about that?
Well, I guess I would ask you then, who if not him, who? He to me turns into, from what we understand about him, he is, if you wanted to have, or if you need to have a face of the franchise, a guy you can put on the podium, a guy that can, that's going to speak every day and really become that vocal presence in the media for fans, etc. Go back to Carey Price for a second. People talked about him being that guy. I think anybody who's covered hockey and knows hockey well knows that Carey Price is one of the top flight individuals and human beings in the league. He's just not, the most verbose guy. He's not the guy that you necessarily are going to put on a podium every day. He's not particularly that guy. Giordano seems to be that guy. So I would think it's a no-brainer, but there's a lot of things I thought were no-brainers going into today. And assuming that the list that we're seeing right now, I keep glancing down to see, if it's changed, but assuming we know that list, there's a lot of things that were no-brainers that didn't happen. I would assume Stetzer is still the pick from Detroit. That, to me, seemed like the biggest no-brainer of all, but maybe not as well. But I think Giordano seems to be the guy that you would put up there and kind of make that face early on.
Just before we switch to just a couple other sports topics,
Yep.
junior fans are different than NHL fans, and I'm just talking about they're used to paying for $20 tickets. So does Seattle, by and large, know hockey? Like, how are they going to feel about this? And if the team's not winning, are they going to support? Like, where do you see this going, Ian, in the next few years?
Well, Rod, I think it's a twofold question. One, as far as winning, it is important, and I think when we all saw you and me and anybody else that looked at that list when it was made public on Sunday, you looked at that list, and the first thing that came to mind was, wow, there's absolutely no excuse not to put together a team that's arguably the second best team in maybe the weakest division in hockey. That's a playoff team. You have on paper, out of the 669 players available, you have an opportunity to be a playoff team right away. I think it's important for a couple of reasons. I think it's important not because, I'll go back, they've sold out every game. They've got a waiting list for tickets. But we all know that those waiting lists can go by really fast. I mean, we saw that with the Seahawks in the early 90s. I mean, it went away snap of the fingers when the franchise started to suffer. The Sonics and the NBA are going to be back in Seattle at some point, probably within the next 4 years max. When the NBA expands and they come to Seattle, that will be the biggest thing that's ever happened in sports in our city's history. And that probably includes the Super Bowl, the return of the NBA. It's huge. It's the first love here. It's like hockey in Canada. And so the Kraken better be good. They better be competitive. They better have built up a fan base outside of the 17,000 people in the building every night. So I think being good early and having success on the ice, I think it is important just based on what's going to come down the road. And you're still in a competitive market. The NFL is there. It's still the king, always probably will be the king. They'll have 70,000 people every game at Lumen Field. And maybe someday, although this might be doubtful because we've been watching it for almost 50 years, maybe someday the Mariners will be competitive again and draw some fans as well.
Think the Kraken are already sick of hearing you better make the Stanley Cup in your first year? I'm sure they got sick of that a few months ago.
Yeah, it's interesting because Vegas set a bar that was just unrealistic in some ways, I thought. And getting to the Stanley, if we take Stanley Cup out and just saying getting to the playoffs and being a contender, Vegas set that bar, and getting to the Stanley Cup final was even more incredible. But they set a bar that's realistic. When you pay $650 million for a franchise, as Seattle did, I think you should expect to be able to be competitive and good in your first few years. The NHL allowed that with those expansion draft rules. The question right now that we all have, and we won't know the answer until probably February or March, is, did Ron Francis and staff take advantage of that? Again, on paper, and I know sometimes it's big names, but on paper, I think we'd all agree there's some head scratchers. There's some ones you wonder about. Like, what, you go through the list. I mean, there's a lot of guys on there that you say, well, why wouldn't you take this guy? Or why wouldn't you take that guy? And, I just kind of, I wonder if they, I don't want to. I'm being careful how I choose my words, Rod, because it's so early in the process, and we learn this every year with the NFL draft when we do it with the Seahawks. The knee-jerk, instant. We're paid. You and I are paid to give a reaction right away, and we're supposed to come up with an analysis and an opinion right away. And oftentimes, a few months later, you look like a fool. But I look at this and wonder to myself, with all the tools and all the things at your disposal, eye test, analytics, numbers, scouts, etc. Did you do something the Seahawks were guilty of a couple of years after they went to the two Super Bowls back-to-back in 2013 and 2014? In Seattle, the Seahawks had just horrible drafts. But what it was more than anything was they kind of outsmarted themselves. You think you're the smartest guy in the room, and sometimes maybe you're not. And they took a flyer on some guys. They took a chance on some guys, and it just didn't work out. And it set the franchise. They make the playoffs every year, but it kind of set them back a little bit. They missed on a lot of guys. I wonder if that happened with the expansion draft. Did they outsmart themselves being the most analytical-based team in the NHL? You have to wonder, but we won't know them for a few months. Love
the analysis. Next time you're back, we'll chat Seahawks. Ian, thanks for this today. Have a great show.
Anytime.
All right,
Rod.
Ian,
thanks a lot, man. Take care.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye.
Ian Furness joining us from 950 KJR Sports Radio, Seattle.
You're watching Rod Peterson On Demand. For more of The Rod Peterson Show, visit rodpeterson.com or follow Rod Peterson on social media.